As they say, if you're not first, you're last. So let's dive into some early off-season predictions. Where are these players going to end up by the end of the year? These aren't going to be locked in terms of the good or bad takes discussion at the end of the year. Just more of a feeling right now. This is very much going to be vibes-based. Both trade targets and free agents are on the cards here. Let's get into it. And just remember a couple of things. One, discarded fringe players aren't just going to end up at bad clubs because that's the easy thing to do. That's not what I'm going to try and do all of the time. Some fits are going to be better than others. And second, guys, if you support players of clubs that I think might be on the move, it's not personal. It's not because I don't like you, okay? Again, it's vibes. That's what it is. If you disagree, just get into the comments and we'll be fine. But let's get into it. Stays at Port, they match any bid that comes for him next year and makes any Victorian club pay an absolute ransom for him. I would love Zak Butters at the Hawks, but I think Hawthorn, Essendon, St Kilda, Geelong and the Western Bulldogs, as well as Collingwood, probably those 6 of the 10 Victorian clubs have got the best chance to land Butters. Roll a hexagonal dice at this point in time in terms of who might end up with him, but honestly, if Port let Zak go, I just don't think they're going to get as much for him at the end of this year than they would at the end of next year. So hold him to his contract, keep him another year, and absolutely get a ransom for him. We'll be genuinely shocked if Lee Kalir is not a Saint next year. The fit he would have with Wilkie and Ugle-Hagan would become your third. You've got Ari Schoenmaker. Not 100% convinced he's in the Saints' plans long term. The Saints are really into him. Fingers crossed it is the same way. And the Saints could land quite a few trade targets here if they could somehow come out of this trade period or with the players that they want and somehow trade back into the first round. It could genuinely be their best offseason of all time. And Lee Kalir, I think, is just about target number 2 on their list. Heard some rumours that the Hawks may have been interested at the end of last year, but if Ryan is gettable, I think the 2 clubs that make the most sense would be the Bombers and the Bulldogs. Yes, he might fit into sort of the Geelong mould, but they really don't need another small forward, I don't think. And I'm not sure Liam Ryan would be coming to Victoria to play for a club who's somewhat down the bottom. If I had to take a guess, I would say the Bombers, but I think the Bombers and the Cats would be 1 and 2 in line if Ryan was to change clubs, and I think he might be on the move at the end of the year, depending on the asset that West Coast would get back. A second rounder? Tick. Still think clubs could come knocking with that long-term injury if, look, one Essendon ruckman doesn't go to South Australia. Does that club come after Nick Bryan? It would definitely be on the cards. There's not too many clubs that definitely need a bona fide ruckman at this point in time. It seems like every club's got one that they're reasonably happy with, and some clubs have got 2 that they're not really happy with. We'll see how that goes. But I think Nick Bryan will be a bomber next year. If there was a club that would try the hardest to get him out of there, it might actually be GWS. I know they've got Kieran Briggs. I know they drafted Logan Smith, and they've got another guy, Nick Madden, I think it is, who's coming through that they may like, so who knows? But I think Nick Bryan might be a bomber, and I think his other ruckmate might be as well, but more on that conversation a little bit later on. Serong's on the outer at the Hawks because of the Battle and Barras acquisitions for the Hawks this year, so another club may come knocking. Would it be Freo to link him back up with Caleb? Who knows? But there are some clubs out there that may look at a medium, tall, hybrid kind of defender. Port Adelaide is one that may come through, might want him. Maybe GWS, if Lee Kalir goes, might get him as a depth piece. But more of a wait and see on this one with Jai. Probably more suitors will come out of the woodwork as the season goes on. I doubt he'll be at the Hawks next year, though. If I am the West Coast Eagles looking for a young WA player to try and bring home, he is almost number 1 on the list, is Angus Sheldrick. Just not getting it done in the Sydney midfield because of the names that are already there, which is more than understandable. New home, outside player. Yes, Elijah Hewitt is coming along nicely, but a bit more class through that midfield works nicely. And I think he is a safer get than it would be drafting a Western Australian, unless it's Fred Rodriguez who's at their spot. But Who's to say they can't have both? If Oscar Allen leaves and they have pick 1 and pick 2, Willem Dersma and Angus Sheldrick work together, and then you could look at a more key position player potentially with that second pick. If the Eagles land Sheldrick, I think it makes the rest of their off-season plans look really interesting. Does he want to go? Because I don't think Freo would work for Sheldrick. I think it's West Coast or Sydney next year. Probably leaning the Eagles, to be honest. Judson Clark's just not getting the opportunities at Richmond at this point in time. I think he was the 21 draft off the top of my head, or 22, that region. And look, if it's not Richmond, who is going to get him is going to be the interesting question, I feel like. But we'll wait and see. A name that he's circulating sort of under the radar in a lot of trade talks. This one is just honestly too early to tell. So if in doubt, doesn't move. Judson Clark probably stays at the Tigers. Logan Morris is the epitome of what we call the double stupid trade talk, as in it would be stupid for clubs not to ask the question, Collingwood, Hawthorn, Essendon especially, and it would be completely stupid for Brisbane to want to get rid of him. Now, yes, if he asks for a trade, that's a completely different proposition. Why the hell would he do that? Logan Morris is going to be at Brisbane next year. I'd be stunned if he isn't. And what a player he is too. Absolute gun. No wonder clubs want him. We're still pretty young and immature in the space of mental health, so Clary not playing against the Eagles being shined in a negative light is not really that surprising, although it does suck. I can understand people that are like, just leave him alone, let him play his footy. I completely agree with all that. I don't really see why he would be going from the Demons, though. Like, they're still going to need a contested player who's in and under. He's younger than Petrarca, so Petrarca might go and play the Dangerfield role, that forward that goes into the middle the longer his career goes on. Clary's only 27. I understand the Geelong connection. I really do. It probably is Melbourne or Geelong. In all honesty, though, Melbourne's probably the option, is probably the call. So, yeah, that. Clary's probably staying at Melbourne, I think. It would be strange to assume he's going anywhere. If Melbourne are doing the right thing by him with the mental health space, who gives a damn what the journalists say about it? And he's clearly got a supportive workplace that is allowing him to look after himself. Why would you depart from that? Wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, if he does, Geelong's going to be the fit. At this point in time, I'll say he's staying. Now, this is being released before the teams come out for the Freo-Collingwood game, so forgive me here. But if Will Brodie gets in ahead of Neil Erasmus now, that's going to say two things. Now, one, it's probably going to be justified because Will Brodie's waffle form has been awesome. Not denying that for a moment. Secondly, it probably says that Erasmus is not going to be in Freo's plans long term. Now, I do hear from a couple of people that I love and trust that Freo do still really like him. I understand that. I can also understand him wanting further opportunity. The only problem that you've got is that because he hasn't started his career in the midfield, although he was drafted as a midfielder, quite a lot of the teams that may be interested in him would also not play him in the midfield. You think of a club like St Kilda, Essendon, North Melbourne would be silly not to go after him. The Tigers, if they did want to go down that path, although it clearly looks like they want to be draft first, the Tigers, unless it's for Harley. It's not really going to be a whole lot of options here. If I am being completely honest, I actually think the best fit for Neil Erasmus would be Port. So there you go. Gold Coast wouldn't be a bad shout either. I probably think he's going, to be honest. But where is probably more mysterious than the decision to stay or not. Can just about lock in that it's going to be a Fremantle swap for Kosi. Now, what that's going to entail, I should say, is going to be really interesting because is it going to be two firsts? Is it going to be a first and a second and maybe a third swap? What's it going to look like? It's going to be really interesting. Now, I don't have a whole lot to say in that space because my Tom Barras trade was in that regard. So, look, I understand that the Hawks did not give up as much as I thought they might or thought the West Coast would want them to in order to get Barras at this point in time. Pick 16, 34, and 52 looks like a steal at this point in time. Yes, I had the option for the Carlton picks. I understand that, but it's pretty damn good what's happened there. And the Hawks are at this point getting pick 55 back as well. So I think the equivalent for that is pick 8 on the draft value index, which is pretty good. But what Kosi is going to cost the Dockers is going to be really interesting. My instincts say 2 firsts and a swap later on, probably in the thirds, probably. and his contract's going to be insane. Him and Shea Bolton in the same forward line is unbelievable, but Freo have still got guys like Sam Switkowski and Bailey Banfield and Sam Sturt that they were able to roll through their forward line. So it's still going to be flawed, but it'll be fun to watch. I feel for Devon because it seemed like a season or two ago, it just looked like he was going to end up at the Eagles, and then the Pies had a little bit of interest in him, and I can completely understand both of those. I really can. In terms of where the heck he goes now, if it's not the Eagles, the Giants maybe, who might need an injection of youth, I should say, into that midfield, that might be the way to go, but quickly running out of options for Devon. So where he ends up, if it's not Brisbane, it might actually not be on a list at all, which would be a real shame. If a club was going to throw him a lifeline, if Butters leaves, could Port Adelaide be the go? Maybe. Could be a really underrated pickup for a club moving forward. In all honesty, if there was a club that I would say, yeah, I reckon he's worth having a go at, it would be the Saints, to be honest, who I think could really go after Finlay McCrae if some other midfield options don't really work out in terms of what they want. Now, yes, Jack Steele's in really good form. Jack McCrae, of course, is not going to be there forever, have an injection of youth, and more importantly, pace. I'm not saying he's lightning quick, but he's certainly not a plotter around the ground. May suit that midfield mix a little bit better. He may need to find another trick, I suppose, outside of just being a midfield presence, but could be on the move. I'd be reasonably shocked if he stayed at Collingwood next year if they wanted some midfield depth pieces, especially considering that someone like Ned Long, who I know is playing a very different role, is getting a game ahead of him. There just may not be a spot there for him. So I think Finlay is going to be on the move. Yet another Tiger struggling for opportunity. Sonsie, I think he's just going to be given time at the Tigers. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. Just looks like a guy who's too good to be a VFL midfielder, not good enough to be an AFL one. So what that looks like moving forward, especially with guys like Taj Houghton and Josh Smiley, who've got to come into that Richmond midfield, I'm unsure about. If another club out there is monitoring and wants to have a swing at him, awesome. Bit unsure about Tyler, to be honest. So my instincts are going to say that he stays at the Tigers for another year, see how it goes. Looks like a genuine coin flip at the moment. I think that Nazaya stays, to be perfectly honest. That's where I'm going to go here. And why wouldn't you? The Saints look like that they are on the way up. They are performing above expectations. They're performing above where I thought they would finish at the end of the year. I think their win total was 9.5. And I took the under with no evidence on why you should go the over. A few people bit back on that. You were more right on that than I was. There is lots to like at St Kilda, and I feel like I'm liking them more than the average non-St Kilda fan at this point in time. I think Naz stays. Yes, the Crows might be on the way up in a bigger way than the Saints. Port, go on to Port if you want more success. I just don't think he's going to be the way forward. They just don't look like they're going to be a contender in the next 2 years. I could be wrong about that, and this is the dip before Josh Carr takes over. I'm a little bit more pessimistic about Port than maybe some others are. So it's Adelaide, it's St Kilda for me. I think he stays, which would be probably the best off-season move that St Kilda could have. That's how good this guy is. Couple of clubs apparently asking the question on Sam Wicks. I think he stays at the Swans. That lockdown role's been really solid for him. Done the job on some very good small forwards this season. I can totally understand the change of role, the better performance. Some other clubs are going, that might be worth looking at. I don't think he goes anywhere, to be perfectly honest. The Candle stays at Sydney. Can definitely see Wardy being on a couple of clubs' radars. Someone like West Coast may have a look at him. If, and that's an if, the Harley Reid trade does swing Hawthorn's way, I think Ward will just have to be in the deal with draft picks. I don't really see how it could be anyone else. I don't think the Hawks will want to let go of Cam Mackenzie. I don't think they want to let go of Josh Ward, by the way. I just don't really see how else the Harley Reid trade without a player thrown in there is going to be anyone else but him, to be honest. It could be him and Serong together with other picks, but again, the picks would still need to be outstanding because neither Ward nor nearly anyone else that might be on the trade table for the Hawks in the Reid deal is going to be worth dropping, say, a first-round pick to a second. I just don't think that's the case. But I think he's a guy that other clubs are going to look at. It does seem like, even though Day is injured, that Ward is the fourth or even fifth midfielder in line, depending on what Henry Hustwaite v Connor Nash is going to be. Do I want the Hawks to trade Josh Ward? I don't think I want the Hawks to trade him if it's only going to bring a draft asset in. I just don't think the Hawks, and this draft especially, is going to have the midfield depth in it in order to justify turfing out a guy we've put the years of development in versus a guy we've put no development into, because I don't think the Hawks are going to spend pick 6 on a midfielder unless Worpel and Ward go. But is an 18-year-old midfielder going to be the answer if McKenzie and Hustwaite are still there? I'm not sure. So unless it brings in an asset that is a player, Reid or Butters, Josh Ward stays. That's what I'm thinking. So kind of the third piece here as to why St Kilda could have just the best off-season. If everything went St Kilda's way, they would get Bergman, Keaton, Nazaya, Wanganeen, Miller. That's just the true starts here. You could look at a classic pickup like Finlay McCrae. You might be sort of buying low on with high returns. That could be a way that you look at it. I know they've got midfield depth there. The Saints, you've got Max Hall, you've got Angus Hasty who could roll through there as well. You've got Hugh Boxall who we saw on the weekend, so maybe they don't need to look at that. We'll see how that goes, but if you can get Bergman, Keaton, Nazaya, Wanganeen, Miller, rotate Jack Sinclair through that midfield as well, your ability to rebound and effectively become the Marvel Marvels would be unbelievable. And plus, Bergman's kicking would help as you expand and get onto the MCG and these kind of grounds that require maybe better field kicking than Marvel Stadium does. It'd be a hell of a pickup for the Saints. If not the Saints, you can almost lock in the Bombers as a team that's going to look at him. I think the Pies could have a look at him as well. Just not sure if they're going to have the draft assets there. But if there is a club that hasn't really been spoken about a whole lot in this video that I think would suit Miles Bergman brilliantly, it's Carlton. How the hell are they going to pay for him, though, is a more than justifiable question. Probably the second most annoying trade talk target, I suppose. The Jamara stuff is he's making his decisions, just move on from it, I suppose. He's either going to be at Sydney or Geelong next year. I personally think Sydney's going to be the better place for him to go to get out of the bubble. I know that's what Geelong provides as well, absolutely, and considering how much Geelong do and not get spoken about in terms of AFL circles, that might be, a way that you could escape and still stay close to family. I have no idea what Jamara's family is like. I don't know how close he is to them. And that's probably going to be the deciding factor. If he's happy to move on his own and keep his life moving and can get away, Sydney. If not, and he wants to stay here for family reasons or personal reasons, it's going to be Geelong. It's one of those. It ain't going to be the Bulldogs. I think it's going to be Geelong. I hope it's Sydney. And that's not because a Hawthorn fan is saying I don't want him at Geelong. I just think it's going to be a better spot for him. In terms of the best assets that they could offer, Harley would be a bomber, if it was as simple as that. In terms of where it would make the most sense, Harley would be a cat. In terms of what I want in my heart, Harley would be a hawk. And if it comes down to the biggest middle finger to the media, Harley stays an eagle. And you know what? That's what I want. Now, obviously, that's because Geelong and Essendon don't get him, and that's definitely the Hawthorn fan inside of me that's going, if it's not us, don't go anywhere. And that's just an envious thing, guys. That's not too big of a deal. But there's also a big thing of, can we all just shut up about the Harley stuff? Because number one, right? If he was the number 2 pick and not the number 1 pick and everything else stayed the same, no one would care. And yes, his impact is not the same as last year. Yes, his aerobic capacity on the field just doesn't look to be the same as even other players in that draft. He's not the only player from that draft who's taken a dip, by the way. Colby McKercher should probably be playing VFL right now. I know Darcy Wilson is a very good player, but his output versus last year is still down. Now, that's not the case for every player in this draft, but second year blues happen. But for the love of Christ, please, Harley, please either come to Hawthorn or stay at West Coast, just to either make me happy or prove the Victorian media wrong. I'm meant to be unbiased, but Harley Reid and Bailey Smith in the Geelong midfield, when realistically they both could have been Hawthorn players, I think it would hurt my soul too much. It really would. And I don't like that. Harley, stay at the Eagles. We'll do some quick free agent stuff as well. Braden Fiorini, where the heck is he going to go? No one really needs his type of midfielder. He's putting up stupid numbers in the VFL. Where does that translate? Yes, the easy answer is West Coast, but like I said, I don't want to just say West Coast are going to go get other clubs' rejects. Does having Fiorini in there hamper Hewitt, a midfielder that they probably draft in this year's draft? It probably does. It probably does. And considering that if they do get pick 1 and 2 with Oscar Allen gone, and then let's just say they get 3 first-rounders from the Bombers for Harley, and maybe they have to give a second back or something in that regard. If you have 5 first-round picks or 4 this year and then 2 next year and a second, like, you'd much rather have the 18-year-olds than Braden Fiorini, wouldn't you? So, in all honesty, as bad as this sounds, it might just be a delisting, which really sucks in this kind of video. This is an even sadder story than you think because of how much he grew up barracking for the Eagles and the way that this is playing out. There are concerns over his knee. It looks like it's going to be Brisbane or Hawthorn. Again, my heart says Hawthorn. My head says Brisbane. It's probably going to be Brisbane. Damn it. $1.7 million a year is going to be hard to knock back, even if the Carlton deal is worth about 1.1. I think he's going. Personally, I really do. I think Carlton will look to scour the AFL world for a ruckman that may be looking for another home somewhere. Nick Bryan might be the way to go, actually, the more that I think about it. But it's Carlton or it's St Kilda. I'm probably 55% going, 45% staying. Neither would surprise me at this point. If Harley doesn't go to Geelong and Matt Rowell doesn't go to Geelong, I think Jimmy Worpel is going to be a cat. I really do. Now, he's done a lot for the Hawks. He's the best and fairest winner at the Hawks. I understand that. And if the Hawks are going to lose Worpel, I just don't think they're going to trade Ward. So, again, a lot of machinations have to go through there. To be honest, I'd be surprised if Jimmy Worpel is a Hawk next year. I will love him forever. I will not like the fact that he's probably going to go to our rival, which kind of stings a little bit. He might be a decent pickup for the Eagles if they wanted to go down that path, but like I said, I wanted to avoid that a little bit. GWS would be a reasonably good fit, but you'd have to wonder between him and Tom Green, is there too much similarity there? But let's be honest, I think he's going to be a cat, and that sucks. Absolutely no chance that he leaves. None, zero, nada, bulldog for life. Mop of beautiful red hair, number 1 ranked midfielder in the competition since round 2. Ed Richards is staying. Kind of a three-headed coin here. He's either going to stay at Brisbane, go to Essendon, or go to West Coast. In all honesty, I think it's Essendon. And what a brilliant pickup he would be in the world of Jake Kelly's and these hybrid, smallish, medium defenders. Brandon Starcevich is one of the better ones in the comp. Yes, he did get torched by Bobby Hill in that grand final. Did you see what he did to the Sydney forwards in 2024? He bounced back in a big way. And hey, 2 flags potentially before moving on. Can't ask for much more than that. Going to attract a bit more interest than you think, Miller, with the fact that he's healthy now, or he's been healthy for the season. He's putting up decent numbers. He looks like he's still got a bit of speed there, which would work. Again, I can see clubs that might need a rebounding defender. You're looking at your Carltons, your Essendons, your Port Adelaides, especially if Kane Farrell goes, who I actually think I left off my list, which is not great by me. I think Kane Farrell might be on the move. Wayne Miller might be a guy that they look at in terms of a replacement there. I could also see someone like Fremantle if they did want to actually put in the work to get more rebounding defenders there. You keep Hayden Young in the middle, you put Wayne Miller down back. It may be an option for them to look at, maybe. Or does a club like North go for it? Not particularly. And again, this is why I say that the fit matters. They've got enough rebounding halfback flankers. They do not need another one. Pretty confident, actually, that Draper stays now at this point. And if the Bombers can hang on to him and Nick Bryan and get either Harley Reid or, of course, use those picks to upgrade their list and still have Swede and El Akhtar come in, that's a 10 out of 10 off-season for the Bombers. And hey, if they could try and sneak their way into a tall forward somewhere, oh boy. His management tried to get him to Freo last year. Didn't quite work out. I just don't think he's going to go anywhere now. The man with the headband. So Camden McIntosh stays at the Tigers. Boring analysis, this one. My bad. But it is what it is. The only way I could see Marcus Bontempelli leaving the Bulldogs is if they sacked Bevo, next week. And why would they do that? They're not doing that. The Bont is not going anywhere. But what you should be doing is checking out my Bulldogs analysis video. Hasn't really gone to a lot of algorithms, which kind of sucks. I don't know what I did wrong there in terms of the eyes of YouTube, but hasn't really done very well, which kind of stinks. But it is what it is. But they're my thoughts, guys. About 35 players there, so fingers crossed you enjoyed the video. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. Over 5,400, which is insane. And I can't thank you guys enough for doing that. So comment below, let me know what you think I got right, wrong, and everything in between. I hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. I will see you for the beginning of round 9. And fingers crossed you guys are voting for your Against the Odds team this week. Plenty of good options out there as Daz keeps trying to climb the ladder. I am still hopelessly last, but improving. Got my last 2 right. So fingers crossed that can continue. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you all, and I will see you very soon.